Hey, Stoney here with another game of Mechabellum, and in this game, we're going to take a look at the new Farseer unit. We're going to look at how it fits into a standard army composition, and how it's able to use its new search radar technology to boost the army's efficiency. Before we jump into the game, let's first take a look at the Farseer unit. It is classified as a large support vehicle taking up an entire 3x3, a total of 9 squares on the map. It costs 300 supplies, and for that money, you're going to get a unit that has just under 12,000 HP. It moves at 11 meters per second. The attacks is 1,148, but because it fires 2 missiles, so every time it fires, it actually does double the damage. It has a splash of 8 meters, which is nice, making it decent against chaff. It has an attack interval of 1.6 seconds, so think of it as a slightly slower version of an arc light. It has a range of 125 meters, which is longer than average of the units that's currently in Mechabellum, and it can target air and the ground from the get-go. I think one thing that's most significant about the Farseer is that even though it cannot reliably contest other 300 supply units on a one-to-one basis, it can, however, dish out a significant amount of damage. When I first started playing Farseer, I thought it was just more of a utility vehicle, but in fact, it can actually do a very respectable amount of damage both to ground and air units. And I find it especially fantastic when it's used against medium-sized units like steel balls, sledgehammers, or even typhoons and fire badgers, and it does decent against tarantula as well. I think the real power of the Farseer comes from its technology, so I'll go through them. It comes with 5 different options to choose from, 4 of which you probably are already familiar with. Photon emission, so this is a beefier version of the photon emission compared to what we have on Sabertooth. It covers up to 100 meters, so that's a very wide radius. And everybody within that 100 meters, of course, will get the photon, making them immune to electromag, ignite, acid, and of course degen beam from the Wraith. It has the search radar. This is a unique ability to the Farseer, and what it does is it enables all the units around a 100 meter radius to shoot for 10 meters further. And that does include the Farseer itself. So essentially what you can do, especially if you're a standard player where you like to clump up your units, right? You get your sledgehammers, your marksmen, your arc lights, all kind of in a ball. You want to make sure you save a 3x3 space right in the center of that ball so that you can put down the Farseer and you can use the search radar technology. The missile interceptor will try to intercept missiles at a 150 meter radius, which is not too bad, and its effect is comparable to that of a Sabertooth, which is not great, but it's not too bad either. So you would probably need 2 Farseers to reliably contest a single group of Stonecrawlers. It has electromag. Electromag does make sense on a Farseer because of its 8 meter splash, so you can get multiple units with the electromag. And of course it has range enhancement that increases its range by 40. Alright, that's enough about the Farseer for now. Let's jump back into the game and see it in action. At the bottom here, I am playing as the Farseer Specialist. It is one of the 2 new specialists, the other one being the Sabertooth Specialist. And with the Farseer Specialist, I am getting a free Farseer at round 3. So a Farseer costs 300 supplies, 100 supply to unlock, so a total of 400 supplies worth of benefits on round 3. My opponent, Refin, is playing as a Fortified Specialist. So round 1, I have tarantulas and a whole crap ton of crawlers, and my opponent decides to go chaffless, putting down 3 squads of sledgehammers and 3 marksmen. Makes a lot of sense because my tarantulas will probably just chew up all the chaff coming from him, and he wouldn't have enough chaff clear against 5 squads of crawlers. Alright, round 2, we got unit drop cards. I think the Sabertooth makes a lot of sense on my board. Fangs, I think he just wanted some additional chaff on the side and also some sort of protection against cheeky flanks. And speaking of cheeky flanks, I am going to have a squad of crawler coming in on one of his sides. The reason I took the Sabertooth is because it works really well with the Tarantula, with one being a powerhouse of chaff clear and the Sabertooth being an anti-unit unit. The other reason I wanted to have Sabertooth is because eventually I'm going to have a Farseer, and I want to put the Farseer right between these units. One is to give it some additional damage with these Farseer rockets, but also I want to get the search radar, improving its range by 10. Alright, round 3 is the Farseer round. Intensive Training is a very good card. I think Farseer is kind of like Mustangs. If you have level 1 Farseers, then they're kind of okay. But once you get them a few levels and also a few items, they transform from this utility-based vehicle to a DPS-based vehicle. My opponent took the Underground Threat, is going to put it on his side to supplement his army. He bought a squad of Wasp and is going to put it at the flank. And I think he might be able to get this. I'm not sure. I don't think the Crawlers is a good option. I think he was more afraid of me putting down a Farseer here at the flank. I think what happened with the Crawlers is that it's going to draw my Tarantula to the Crawlers. And once the Tarantula finish the Crawlers off, then these Wasps are just going to follow this Tarantula all the way to the front instead of getting my tower. Alright, let's focus our attention back to the middle here. I have a very forwardly placed squad of vertical fangs, and the reason I had those vertical fangs right there is that I want to draw my opponent's units towards the middle, allowing me to create a kill zone right here. Most of my units are larger, medium-sized units, and they don't tend to walk very fast. So the less I have to travel, the better, and it's just nothing beats the convenience of having your opponent's entire army in this box. And just as I expected, these Wasps are just following the Tarantula, allowing my Farseer to quickly dispatch them. Speaking of the Farseer, there are excellent units for anti-air. Not only they have that 8-meter splash, which is really great against things like Wasps, they have a considerable amount of damage that can easily take out things like Wraiths. Even though the Farseer cannot stand up to a Overlord one-on-one, but with enough of Farseers and also with a bit of chaff's support, I feel like the Farseer can really outshine most of the air units. Alright, so it's going to be haste module for both of us, and it's going to be a range on the Tarantulas. Now, whenever I'm playing Tarantula versus Sabertooth, I always prefer to get range on the Tarantula first. I feel like Tarantulas, one, is just that they're slightly less tanky than a Sabertooth, and also two, with range, the Tarantula doesn't have to walk too far to cover up all the chaff. Whereas the range on Sabertooth, I feel like, you know, you can deal the board without a anti-giant unit, but it is very hard to deal a board without an anti-chaff unit, right? So I would rather lose the Sabertooth first, allowing my Tarantulas to clear out the chaff, and then deal with the giant unit with the rest of the army, than to lose my Tarantula, letting my Sabertooth to essentially fire at fans and crawlers and not getting to the target. Alright, my opponent decided to sell out on the Wasp, good choice, and added even more fans at the front. So fans and snipers. And as you can see, once again, the entire army is being drawn to this box. So whenever you have this opportunity, if most of your army are placed near the tower, just put a vertical fang right there in the middle, and it's just going to pull everybody into this box here, making them so much easier to kill. Alright, we're looking at round 5 unit drop. I think Stormcallers make sense for both of us. I would be surprised if my opponent didn't take the Stormcallers. Stormcallers work excellently when both of your armies are sort of a slow, static line battle type of army. And that's because when your armies are stopping, then the Stormcaller can just deal its maximum damage onto the army itself. All right, so it's going to be 2 Stormcallers on both of us. We're going to line them up. I've added even more Farseer, and I took the Search Radar technology, which increases the range by 10 meters within a 100-meter radius. So if you ever wonder how far is a 100-meter radius, you see on the screen here, you got this line around the Farseer. That is firing range, and that firing range is 125 meters. So you essentially look at that firing range and count 5 squares in, and you'll get the 100 meter. Now, luckily, the Farseer does have this aura when we're out of deployment phase, so you can see exactly which units are being buffed and which units are outside of this aura. I think the Stormcallers are working a little better for me than it is for my opponent, simply because he has many smaller units, which are more prone to the splash damage of the Stormcallers, where I have just a few single large units. Alright. However, my opponent's Stormcaller also did a number on me, so I think I'm going to get the anti-missile technology for my Farseer. Now, first of all, reinforcement cards. I'm not sure if any of these make a lot of sense, so I'm going to skip. I hit the anti-missile technology. Farseer's anti-missile technology, I think, is slightly stronger than that of a Sabertooth. I think 2 Farseers can comfortably deal with 1 squad of Stormcallers. The anti-missile technology actually has a wider range than the default Farseer firing range, which is 125. The anti-missile fires at 150 meters, making it quite potent, actually, because the Farseer tend to run forward just a little bit, so with 150, essentially you can start firing at the missiles the moment they leave the Stormcallers. Alright, my opponent added 2 fortresses to deal with my medium-sized units. And fortresses, they deal twice the damage as a same level Sabertooth, but have 4 times the health. But at this point, with such high level Sabertooth, we've got a level 3 Sabertooth, we also have a level 2 Farseer. I don't think the fortresses stand a chance. And with the AM, I am no longer suffering from these level 2 Stormcallers. But my Stormcallers are doing work on my opponent's army. Alright, round 7. We got reinforcement cards, and the card I'm going to take is the Efficient Small Unit Manufacturing. It used to be called a Junior Manufacturing, so they've changed the wording a little bit. Now it's a bit more mouthful. And they also added this beautiful design here, so I love the design. Alright, I took Shield on my fangs. I noticed that my opponent's unit most consist of just sledgehammers, fortresses, so not a lot of AoE damage. And the only AoE damage that's coming from my opponents in the form of the Stormcallers are being intercepted by my Farseers. So Shield Defense makes a lot of sense. My opponent took the Javelin, and he's going to get this squad of unit right here. However, I am not too worried about it because I feel like my units are all quite leveled, which means if all things goes according to plan, I should be able to take this round. Alright, got rid of the underground threat. We're going to focus on the man army here. The fortress here is going to be a slight problem simply because I don't have my high-level saber-tooth on that side anymore. However, I do have 2 Farseers, and they do a considerable amount of damage. Alright, the fortress going down. Most of my army are still alive. We got a high-level saber-tooth that's just picking off these stone crawlers right here. And it looks like we have a few sledgehammers left, and of course we have these stone crawlers, which are so annoying to deal with. Alright, looking at the health here, I think I should be able to win the game. The Farseers do cost 300, and of course I have some stone crawlers left over. And with that, it's a good game. So overall, I feel like Farseers, they start off sort of like a utility vehicle at low levels, but as you give them a few levels, they can really come into play as a main DPS unit. I think it works really well in this sort of line position in the standard play. I'm not entirely convinced that the Farseer is going to be good in aggro play, because in aggro play, usually you don't need as much range. What do you think about this new unit? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If your break isn't over right this minute, you have to check out this video. I'll see you on the next one.
Prepare your tactics. Mechabellum's calling. Deploy your fortress. The battlefield's alive with swarms.